welcome to week 1 biology 1022 anatomy physiology, and today we're going to be talking about the skeletal system. Now you remember there that one of the definitions of an organ is that it is it has multi-purpose, multifunction, and if you look at the skeletal system as a whole, we're just going to jump ahead there 2 slides there, but you'll see there it provides support. Okay, protection there. Look at the skull, protects the brain, the rib cage there. Protects the internal organs. In conjunction with some muscle, we can get some movement. When the muscle contracts, it pulls on one end of the bone there and gets it moving. Bones there are also a storage reservoir for calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. We just don't throw these things out. Okay, when the blood calcium level gets too high, where does the calcium go? It gets dumped on the bones. When the blood calcium level gets too low, we go and we rob the bones. You'll see there that the bones are actively being degraded and built up at the same time. We'll get there. RBC production, red blood cell production, absolument. Okay, bones there, they produce blood in conjunction there, being told by the kidneys. But we'll get there as well. So you see the bones, very important, just not for protection or support. Lots of other stuff. Going back here to slide number 2. Yes, anatomy physiology, you will, at the end of this course there, by the end of this course there, you'll have a little bit of an understanding of some new words, Greek and Latin. Okay, welcome to it. Lots of fun. Overview of the skeletal system. You'll see here, oh, and by the way, I need to tell you that this is how I view, and this is how I hope that you would view all of these PowerPoints. I don't go to slideshow because it just, it doesn't work. Okay, and so this is how I want you guys to view it, somewhere in this range here, because my presentations aren't solid, they're not rigid. I like to move things around and play with them, and you'll see how it all goes. It'll work, it works pretty well. So I'm fiddling with it now, but this is how I would prefer you to view these things. Okay, all the links and embedded movies and that, they're fully accessible from this view, so have some fun here. It provides me with more of a canvas in which to learn you. All right, so started off with the axial skeleton. Okay, and you'll see here the axial skeleton is just the cranium, the vertebral column, and the rib cage. There is no movement associated with the axial skeleton. Okay, per se. Yes, the spine, there is some movement there, but really no locomotion. That whole aspect there goes with the appendicular skeleton. And you'll see here the clavicle, the shoulder blade on down, okay, the scapula, humerus, radius, ulna, okay, it's all for locomotion, movement, and you'll see there that the axial skeleton comes down, includes the coccyx there, all right, but does not include the hip bones, all right, the hip bones, and then you the femur, tibia, fibula on down, again for locomotion. So axial skeleton, appendicular skeleton. Just going to zoom out a little bit here. Yep. This is all good stuff, and you can just go through again. You know what I mean? Where there's over 200 bones, and the point of this course is not to have you memorize every single one, because things get a little wonky when you get into the ankle and the wrist, and you get all these little bones. You know, the lunate and all this. So no, we're more into the more noticeable. Okay, we'll get into bones there, the skull and the face. Yeah, there's lots of them there. Okay, you just have a look at these there. Humerus, radius, ulna. We'll tell you how to identify these. Hip bone there, pelvic girdle. You know, this is all good stuff. The vertebral column there, you'll see that you have the cervical vertebrae in here, thoracic, and then the big boys down in here, the lumbar. These are the ones there you have to take care of. Bones of the skull, there are many. Okay, and you think that the skull is basically one big fused bone, and it is. But that's not the way it starts out. Okay, and we'll get into those there. You'll notice that in the hand, okay, you actually have the same bones that are in the feet. These guys here are phalanges of the toes, and these guys here in the hand are phalanges as well. All right, femur, tibia, the little guy on the side there is your fibula. Okay, kneecap, patella. And again, there's a couple good ones there that I always ask on a test, like calcaneus. Oh, doesn't it just sound like an interesting bone? All right, let's move on, shall we? Overview of the skeleton. Axial consists of about 80 bones. The skull, cranial, 8 bones. The face, 14 bones. There's the hyoid bone, okay? That one there, like the patella, the kneecap, is what we call a sesamoid bone, okay? And it's embedded there within a tendon, okay? No articulation here with the hyoid. Auditory ossicles there. Here we're talking the ear, 6 bones there. Vertebral column, 26 bones. The thorax. Welcome to a little bit of entomology there, studying of insects. Thorax there, we're just talking about the chest. Okay, sternum 1 bone, rib 24. There's lots going on, and we'll get into these ones right here. Overview of the appendicular. Okay, consists of 126 bones. All right, there's your pectoral girdle. Okay, the pectoral, the chest there. You got the clavicle, 2 bones. Scapula on the back side. Clavicle there, that's your shoulder bone. Very painful bone if it breaks there. Very painful for quite a while, actually. Scapula there, that's on the back of the shoulders, 2 of those. There's your humerus, upper arm. Ulna, radius there, the forearm. Carpals. Now we're into the wrist, metacarpals there, the lower wrist, and then phalanges there, the fingers, okay? The pelvic girdle, this is the upper portion there, the lower portion there, that's the hip, okay? The hip bone there, there's 2 portions, as we saw right here, right? 1 and 2. The lower limbs there, you got 2 femurs, 2 patellas, 2 fibulas, 2 tibias. Okay, that's in the lower leg there. The tibia is the big one on the shin. Okay, fibula there is just more for balance. Okay, tarsals, they're comparable there to the carpals. Where the carpals here, you're talking wrist bones. Tarsals are your ankle bones. Metacarpals, metatarsals. Now we're into the lower foot, and then phalanges, fingers, phalanges, toes. There you go. Interesting stuff, eh? Woo, woo. Bone tissue, dense matrix there containing deposits of calcium salts, collagen fibers. These collagen fibers there, they provide a little bit of sponge. So the bones aren't like 100% solid concrete, right? There is a little bit of stretch. Okay. Collagen 25%. Surprisingly, water 25%. Strength and flexibility, absolutely. If you ever saw a question there, asking if bones are alive, you would most definitely answer yes. Okay. Types of bones, long bones like arms and legs there form the weight-bearing part of the skeleton. Short bones like in the wrist, carpals, ankles, tarsals have short, small structure that allows for a greater range of motion, right? If you just rotate your wrist or your ankle, you'll see there that there's quite a lot of motion, 360 degrees. It's because of those bones, right, that are located in that joint. Flat bones like the skull, sternum, scapula, pelvis, okay? Irregular bones like the mandible, jawbone, vertebral columns, those are the spinal cord there, are great for muscle, tendon, and ligament attachment, okay? When you get into some of these weird looking bones, it's all about muscle, tendon, ligament attachment, okay? Sesamoid bone embedded there within a tendon, okay? There's your hyoid and patella. There are 2 examples. You will need that again. Now, moving on, what we've got there's 2 main types of bone tissue. And, let's just say there we're looking at the femur there, the upper leg bone, okay? And, we've done a cross-section of it, okay? And this is the outside of the bone here, okay? This is where your fingers would touch on the outside over here. And there's the covering, okay, what we call the periosteum, okay, covering the outside of the bone. And then immediately on the outside of the bone, we have what's called compact. Okay, compact bone. Okay, you'll see there, these are what we call organized osteons. Okay, and basically, I don't want you to think of them as tree rings, but kind of think of them as tree rings. Tree rings they're an annual thing, and we can count the age of a tree based on the number of tree rings, because it goes to sleep in the winter and wakes up in the summer and grows again, and then goes to sleep in the winter and wakes up in the spring and goes again, right? It doesn't work like this. But how these guys go, so I think I have a good video embedded in the PowerPoint there that you'll see that when the bone is flat, you'll see that there's blood vessels, okay, all this that get laid down, and then you'll see the bone tissue wraps around and wraps around, and that's how the bone grows when you're talking about compact bone. Makes up the bulk of the diaphysis of long bones, protection, support, resistance, and an external stressor. Okay, and then on the inside, like the marrow portion, okay, what we have is spongy bone, aka trabecular bone. It's less organized, and you can see that it's clearly different and less organized than what we've got going over here. See, there's no spaces anywhere here when you're talking compact bone, but the spongy bone, absolutely. Okay, short, flat, irregular bone, and the epiphysis there, that's what we're talking about here. Lighter in weight, red bone marrow associated. And you think there that basically these long bones, they're hollow. And hollow bones are actually stronger than solid. And that's why bones tend to have this hollow marrow on the inside, because it makes them hollow, which does make them stronger. And that's where the blood is made, inside there. You'll see there that these osteons there, they're also known as Haversian canals. Okay, there's lamella, there's your blood vessels. Oh my goodness, there's nerve in there as well. Absolutely. Okay, lacunas, osteocytes, we'll get into all these there as we move on down. So, 5 major cell types, each of which is specialized form of the same basic cell. We're going to talk about osteoblasts, B, build bone, osteoclast, C, degrade bone. Okay, you got to know those ones. Osteoblasts, build bone, osteoclasts, degrade bones. Osteocytes there, these guys here deal with pressure. There's osteons, lamella. Let's get on to it, shall we? Osteoblast, build bone, ossification. Ossification, okay, a little bit of Latin there. Ossify, bone making, building bone. Bone forming cells that secrete an unmineralized bone matrix called osteoid. Okay, osteoid is made up of collagen and calcium binding proteins. Collagen makes up about 90% of bone matrix there. These osteoblasts are actively mitotic, right? Growing bones. Building up of bones produces collagen scaffolding. And scaffolding, you think of this like a building. If you look around, now there at Georgian College or wherever you go, these big buildings, you'll see these pillars going up through the center of the building. This is scaffolding. It's got to hold the building together. It's absolutely no different when you're talking about bone. Taking up minerals there from the blood to make extracellular matrix. Absolutely. Osteoclasts, giant multinucleated cell function there in bone reabsorption, breaking down of bone. So the whole idea there, when the blood calcium gets too high, blood calcium, where do we put that calcium? We just don't throw it out, dump it on the bones, build more bones. When the blood calcium gets too low, because as you'll see throughout this course, Mama always said, drink your milk, eat your cheese and yogurt because calcium is good for your bones and your teeth. Well, what Mama didn't say is that no muscle or neuron would fire in the absence of calcium. So in order to live, to have proper nervous system functioning, muscles firing, playing soccer, do whatever, you've got to have the calcium there. So it's a pretty important atom for sure. So we're involved in breaking down the bone, derived there from the same hematopoietic stem cells. Okay, there's your blood-making stem cells that become macrophages there. When active cells are located in depressions there called reabsorption bays, regulated there by the hormone calcitonin. All right, we'll get into these ones here. There's two opposing hormones, calcitonin and PTH, parathyroid hormone. Okay, when the blood calcium gets too high, calcitonin comes in and dumps it there on the bones. Cells have ruffled borders there that serve to increase the surface area for enzyme degradation of the bone. Okay, good stuff. Osteocytes. These are mature maintenance bone cells in the lacunae that no longer divide, maintain bone matrix. These guys here, they act as stress and strain sensors. So the whole idea there that exercise is good, but exercise is another reason why exercise is good is because you're jumping around, you're doing jumping jacks. The osteocytes in your bones are sensing that you're putting stress on the bone, so therefore they send the signal there, keep these bones dense. We need good bone matrix here because this guy here is doing exercises all the time. And that's the trouble. If you're not doing exercise, you're not walking, you're not running, you're leading a sedentary lifestyle like elderly people tend to do, what'll happen is the body will rob the bone of the necessary minerals, so therefore the bones will become weaker. Welcome to a disease called osteoporosis. Okay, that's a different ballgame, but we'll get there. Communicates information there to the osteoblast and osteoclast. Okay, for bone remodeling, takes up nutrients, rid waste, produces ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that's your energy molecules, communicates there with other cells. So these guys here, they do a lot. Osteon there, Haversian system. An osteon is the structure unit of compact bone. That's these concentric circles here. Okay, consists of elongated cylinder that runs parallel to the long axis of the bone. There's a really good slide there. Next one there that shows these very well. Acts as tiny weight-bearing pillars. An osteon cylinder consists of several rings of bone matrix there called lamellae, which contain collagen fibers that run in different directions in the adjacent rings. We'll show you these there. It's all about stress and resisting twisting. Bone salts are found in between these collagen fibers. And you have a look here. You'll see that the collagen fibers are running in different directions. Excuse me, I got a bit of a cough. And that's all part of it. Okay, because if you had them all going the same way, then that would actually, weaken the bone. But now they're all in different directions. Wherever one would be weak, the next layer there will be strong because it's running in the opposite direction. So you'll see how it works there. Have a look there at your arteries, capillary there, your vein, and your neurofiber. Okay. Good stuff. Great little video here. Please give it a watch. This one here shows the whole idea of osteon, the layering of bone wrapping around. Great little vid. Just some shots here of all the different bones. Okay, there's your snapshot there of your flat bone. There's your sesamoid bone embedded in a tendon. Irregular bones. You can see that this is all about muscle, tendon, ligament attachment. There's your short bones in here, carpals, metacarpals, and long bones, and the beautiful example of the femur for sure. Moving into the long bones. Okay, you'll see there that regions of interest. You have the diaphysis. which tends to be, if you take the head off of one end and the head off of another, when we're talking long bones here, it's the long central portion in here. Okay, on either end there, you have what's called the epiphysis. Okay, you have in this end here, you have the distal and then proximal. We'll get into those there, okay, before the end of today's class, and the whole idea of how to, name properly, okay, as far as where a bone is and kind of the direction that it's going. You have the metaphysis, which is in between the diaphysis and the epiphysis here. This is where all the growth happens, okay, and inside there you have the medullary cavity. Okay, that's where the blood is made, and you see there's yellow bone marrow as opposed to red bone marrow. Okay, red bone marrow would come from a younger individual. An old guy like myself, I'd have lots of yellow bone marrow. Okay, tissue of the long bone there, you'll see there's cartilage, articulating cartilage, and that'll be on the outside, because wherever bone meets another bone, you will have arthritis if you don't have any cartilage there. The grinding of bone, you'll degrade the bone, and that's the whole point of cartilage. Okay, this articulate means joint, cartilage, okay, just give your nose a squeeze, it's the same stuff. Periosteum, okay, that's the outside covering there, the bone. The inside is what we call the endosteum. So lots of good stuff there. There's your spongy bone, and you'll see there that your compact bone, as we said earlier, tends to be on the outside. All right. Factors that can affect bone growth: diet, of course. You are what you eat. You have to maintain these. Exercise, weight-bearing exercises, they increase the bone density and increase production there of human growth hormone. Other hormones there, insulin, thyroid. Wait until we get into the thyroid for sure. Iodine, that's if this one here is out of whack, then pretty much everything in the whole body is out of whack. Ossification. This is here we're talking about building of bone growth. There's actually two kinds, okay? Then when you're talking about flat bones and long bones, there's what we call intracartilaginous ossification, and then we have intramembranous ossification. This one here, we're talking about flat bones. Think of the skull, okay? And intercartilaginous, that's the other kind there, like long bones there. We'll get these here. Both types rely on calcitonin, a hormone produced by the thyroid gland, which regulates the metabolism of the body's most abundant mineral, calcium. Okay, high concentrations of calcium in the blood initiate the production of calcitonin, which then lowers the blood calcium and puts that calcium onto the bones. Okay. Intercartilaginous ossification. When calcium and phosphorus calcify along the cartilage in the developing fetus, begins about the 5th week after conception. Okay. The absence of any of these there, these cause rickets. What happens there? Blood supply brings osteoblasts to the bone, who then attach themselves to the diaphysis. Okay. Then to the epiphysis, which forms the epiphyseal line. You see that one right in there? That's what you're talking right there. The epiphyseal line to form the metaphysis, where all further bone growth occurs. So bones grow here and they expand from here, so therefore expanding the length of the diaphysis as this moves out. Okay. So intercartilaginous here, we're talking about long bones, and you'll see here intramembranous ossification. Here we're talking about flat bones, and just think of the skull. And when baby is born, there's a baby has a soft spot, and you have to be very careful of this because there's nothing there. Babies are so cute, and they look kind of strange because their head is 1/3 the length of their bodies when they're born, but as we become adults, our heads shrink, so to speak, or our bodies grow, and our heads are only about 1/7 or 1/8 the length of our entire body. So the brain is pretty important even at birth, and you'll see there that these bones here are not hard. Okay, they're very soft and spongy, malleable, and there's even a hole, and you know, that's baby's brain right there. You just have to take care, and eventually these will ossify, and you know, you just think of like fingers kind of creeping across here, these little tentacles from one side, and then they eventually harden. Okay, and then these gaps, okay, they actually turn hard into cement. The whole thing, the skull completely ossifies there after puberty, and these turn into what we call sutures. Okay, the skull and mandible and fetus are the first membranes there. Blood supply again brings these osteoblasts, which attach to the membrane, ossifying from the center outwards. Center outwards there. Edge of skull bones do not completely ossify, allowing for molding of the skull, which comes later. Okay, great word there, fontanelle, baby's soft spot. Why does I keep doing that? There we go. And please remember there that I'm just kind of barreling right on through. You guys pause this. Please pause it. Go back to anything there. Take notes. Watch movies. All that kind of stuff. Take your time. This is a journey. This is your journey. Okay? Just some basic terminology here. Sutures. Immovable joints that hold the bones of the skull together. Fossa, depression in or on the bone. You'll see that these bones are not just like smooth white tubes. They're ridges, they're tubercles, there's there's facets, there's all these different things that are associated with bone, because it's all about muscle attachment, tendon, and ligament attachment. Okay, and in this case here, you're talking a rib bone or a vertebral bone here, you know, your ribs can articulate, and you'll see that they have facets. Little places there for another bone to articulate, to join together. Foramen, these are holes in the bone, okay, that allow for blood vessels and nerve to get through. We have them all over, and they're natural. We have just little holes in our face bones there that allow nerves and blood vessels to travel through. Canal, large passageway through the bone. Sinus, chamber within a bone. You'll look at it when we get into the skull. If our skull was just like kind of solid meat and bone, we wouldn't be able to support our head. Okay, it would be too heavy, and we'd all be walking around with broken necks. You'll see there that in the skull, there's lots of sinuses. There's lots of air in there and empty space. More so in my head than more others. Articulation means joint, facets, joints in the spine. Let's have a look here, shall we? There's your axial skeleton. That's all mint. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, there's the backside there. Clavicle, scapula, rib, humerus, vertebrae, radius, ulna, carpals. Okay, everything here is fair game. Love it. Okay. Cranium, 8 cranial bones. Okay, there's your frontal bone. Okay, occipital bone here at the back. All right, and if you feel there the back of your skull, you should be able to feel what's called your occipital protuberance. A little ridge there at the base of your skull there. Okay, you should be able to feel it there. You have your sphenoid bone. All right, you have the ethmoid bone. They're inside. We'll have a look at those. They're kind of strange ones. They're interesting, and one of them actually kind of looks like a butterfly right in the middle of our face. Parietal bones right here. You have one on this side, you have another one on the other side there, and your temporal bones there. Okay, your zygomatic arch, and there's your maxilla. Okay, your mandible. All right, perfect. Let me zoom out here. That's as good. That's good. Right there. So the sutures there, the cranium, okay, as I said there, these were kind of gaps there in the fetal skull, but over time there they've hardened and they're completely solid up. And you'll see there that there's different ones. There's your sagittal suture, which is right down the middle, your lambdoid suture separating your occipital and your parietal, your squamous suture there's your temporal, parietal, coronal, separating there your parietal from your frontal. Facial bones there. Oh my goodness, and there's a little foramen. Can you see that one right there? Allowing the blood there to travel on through. Just more shots of the same thing. Okay, you guys can have a look at these, become familiar with them as you need to. Okay, backside here, there's your occipital bone. Okay, the backside there of your two parietals, there's your sagittal suture. Okay, and your lambdoid suture, and two temporal bones on the side there. Posterior view, anterior front, posterior back. We'll get there. Okay, again, just more shots of the same thing. Have some fun with that. This is the sphenoid bone. It's a strange one, and you'll see where that one's in the inside. Okay, and isn't that one there just a beauty? Okay, and superior view from the top, and then there's your backside view there. Okay, beautiful looking bone, and again creates all this space inside of the head. And you know, our head isn't solid, right? We wouldn't be able, our little cervical vertebrae there in our neck wouldn't be able to hold up our head if it was just solid. Ethmoid bone, you'll see the location of that one there, basically in between and behind the eyes. There's another beauty. Okay, I always like this slide here. If you look, you know, basically if you could just, you know, pop your head off and look underneath it. Okay, you can see there we've removed the mandible. Okay, and there's the roof of the mouth right there. You'll see that this hole in the base of the skull, we call it the foramen. Remember, a foramen is just a hole. That's all it is. And this one here we call the foramen magnum. Yeah, it's a pretty important hole because this joins the spinal cord. It provides the connection there for the spinal cord there to come in contact and be a part of the brain, central nervous system. All right. Now, this is not the biggest foramen in the body. The biggest there is located in the hips. The two hip bones there, you have the foramen obturator. Okay, which I'll show you those in a little bit. Infant skull. Okay, I don't really go too much into fetal. You know, I mean, obviously I'm lying here because I've mentioned it a couple times there since this PowerPoint began. But generally, there the focus will be on, you know, adult. But it's always good there to see. There's the fontanelles, and you'll see the basically the open holes in between the bones to be in a fetal skull. Okay. Moving on there, down into the vertebral column, the spinal column. Okay, you'll see that it's broken up into three parts. There's your cervical vertebrae. Okay, these guys here are not designed to take any weight at all. Kind of like little bird bones. We'll show you these. Thoracic vertebrae. Okay. There are 7 cervical, and we label these C1, C2, C3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we move on to T1, T2, all the way to T12. That means your thoracic vertebra. Okay, and you'll see that there's a lot more going on. You have rib attachments here. These guys are a little bigger. They can take a little bit more stress. Okay, they are heavier and you know, tougher. And then you have the lumbar here, which there are 5, L1, 2, 3, 4, and L5. These are the big boys here. These ones here are designed to take a hit. Okay, not a lot of movement. Like, there's lots of movement up here in the neck. You can, you know, turn your neck around. Even with your, you know, your chest, there's movement in there. Not a lot of movement here associated with the lumbar vertebrae. Okay, but these ones here are the ones there that get hurt the most. People not, when they're picking up a box, not bending their knees. Okay, that kind of thing. Take care of your lower back. Trust me, I know all about lower back issues. Functions: encloses, protects the spinal cord, supports the head, attachment point there for ribs, pelvic girdle, muscles of the back for sure. The axial skeleton, the vertebral column continued. How many vertebrae are there in infants and children? Okay, there's 33 in children, 26 in adults, and you'll see there that the sacrum and the coccyx, when they are initially they're in children, they're separated, but as an individual gets older, they tend to fuse together and become one. So that's why there's less bones in adults. Which vertebrae are movable? All except the sacrum and the coccyx. What are intervertebral discs? Their outer ring is made of fibrocartilage. Their interior is soft elastic. You look at those vertebral discs, okay? I think I have a shot there, the next slide. The whole idea there, this fibrocartilage, there's shock absorbers there that are in between the vertebra. Okay, they can get pinched out, they can get moved out, they can pinch in on the spinal cord or some other type of PNS nerve there, peripheral nerve. So just got to take care. Okay. Here is C1 and C2. This is where the head sits on. This is C1, also known as the atlas. Okay, top vertebrae, this one here is involved in the yes motion, nodding of the head forward. Number 2, C2, is called the axis. And you'll see there that the atlas sits on top of the axis. Okay, and you'll see there that there's the little articulating facets right here that fit right onto the underside of C1. And this one here is involved in the no motion, left to right. Okay, also known as the dens. So atlas, axis. Okay. There's just another shot there of your thoracic vertebra. Okay, and you'll see what's coming off. There's your spinal cord. Your spinal cord's going up, and then you'll see that peripheral nerves are coming out at each junction. You know, you've got them there for the stomach and everything. You know, and depending upon where it is, that's the whole point of the nerve. That's the whole point of the spinal column, is to allow the brain to make the connection to all the different areas of the body. These guys here are larger and stronger than cervical vertebrae, but not as large and strong as the lumbar. They have facets for articulating there with the ribs. You'll see them right here. Okay, that's where the rib bones there, they come around and they attach here and on the inside as well. Movement of the thoracic region is limited by the attachment of the ribs there. Okay. There's the big boys there. There's your lumbar. There's your intervertebral disc. Okay, and those are just little, patio furniture cushions there that just sit in there. They can get pushed, squeezed, crunched, and depending upon the level, you might have to have vertebral columns fused together, okay, so that they don't move anymore and cause any trouble. But you can see here, look at the vertebral body on these guys. Massive, and you'll see what's going on here. Smaller when you're talking thoracic, and when you're talking cervical, really nothing. Okay, look at that vertebral body. Nothing. No weight bearing here at all. This is all about weight bearing. Okay. Vertebral discs, fibrocartilage. Their interior is soft elastic. They're just about shock absorbent. Okay, that's all they do. All right. Axial skeleton, curvatures, and you'll see here that a lateral deviation, lateral left to right, and from what I understand, we all have a little bit of scoliosis to some degree. Okay, you'll see there that it's extremely elevated in this individual here. Okay, we've got an extreme deviation there. All right, we have another one here called kyphosis. This one here is when the deviation is in the upper portion of the spine. And then we have lordosis, okay, and lumbar there. This is in the lower lumbar region, an improper deviation there of the spine, okay. So scoliosis, kyphosis, and lordosis. Perfect. sacrum and the coccyx. You'll see what's going on here. All right. Anterior view, this is front. This is looking at it from the back side there. And, you know, initially there's these bones here, but then they end up fusing there later on in life. Okay. Sacrum and your coccyx. Okay. Thorax refers to the entire chest. The thoracic cage, the skeletal portion of the thorax, consists of a bony cage, sternum, costal, cartilage, ribs, and body there, the thoracic vertebrae. Basically, just there to protect the organs and all the good stuff inside, because that's where all the good stuff is. Provide support there for bones and shoulders there. Okay, there's your sternum there, manubrium. Okay, xiphoid process. Take note there of the 7 true ribs, because they attach, okay, directly to, okay, the sternum. And then you'll see ribs 8, 9, 10, and 11, and 12. Okay, these ones here are the false ribs, okay, because they attach to each other, not directly to the sternum itself. And then we actually have floating ribs as well. All right. And moving on. Hey, we're making good time here. The upper limbs, the arms, these ones here, there is the humerus. Okay, there's your clavicle, your shoulder bone, there's your scapula there in the back of the shoulder blade, and you'll see that there's an articulation there that allows the humerus there to fit into the shoulder joint. Maybe it's more visible here. I'll zoom in a little bit. And yeah, that's your humerus. Okay, there's a lot more going on here. I'm not interested in deltoid tuberosity, lateral epicondyle, even though they are cool stuff. All right, moving on down into the forearm. Okay, here is the radius and the ulna, and you'll notice, okay, anatomical position. If you stand up straight with your palms up and your arms at the side, and you'll see there that this is the right arm here. There's the thumb pointing there to the right side, and then the 4 fingers there. You'll see that the radius will always be on the lateral side. I'll show you this more when we get into more anatomical position there later on. And the ulna there will be on the inside. You just may see that again. Okay. And wrist and hand bones. I'm not too crazy about these, you know what I mean, where you guys are going. I've got my nurses and the paramedics and firefighters and vet techs and all this. I got massage therapy. The whole idea of knowing, you know, the difference there between the lunate and the hamate, you know, I don't think I'd ask you that, okay? But knowing that there's 8 carpal bones, these are your carpals, okay, metacarpals, and then your phalanges. You'll notice there in the toe or in the feet, okay, in the wrist there, these are carpals. In the ankle, these are tarsals, and in the feet, these would be called metatarsals. Okay, stretching out there from the ankle, extending out into the feet, and then the toes. Here we're talking phalanges again. All right. Moving on down into the hips there. Okay, the opening is formed by the sacrum, there's the ilium, and the pubis bone. Okay, there's your ilium there, left and right. Okay, there's the sacrum there, that's involved in the axial skeleton. We are now moving into the appendicular movement, and you'll see how the articulation forms there between the femur, okay, and the pelvic bone here. The pelvic bone obviously protects abdominal organs. You know, the whole idea there when you, elderly people there, when they have a fall, it's one of the most devastating things is breaking a hip. You know, you have an 80-year-old individual there whose movement is already limited and they fall down, and because of osteoporosis, whatever reasoning there, the hip bone fractures. Now these people are confined to a bed for months and months. And generally, elderly individuals who fracture a hip tend to not recover to where they were. It's quite devastating. So, drink your milk, eat your calcium for sure. There's that obturator foramen I was mentioning there earlier. Okay, these are the biggest foramen there in the body. All right. I thought that this was an interesting slide. The whole idea there, difference between female and male pelvis. And as expected there, the female pelvis tends to be wider. Okay, and obviously therefore childbirth there. The pubic arch is a lot wider and allows therefore passage of the child through. Okay, we'll get more into that there. But just archaeologically speaking, if you found a skeleton, there are a number of different ways that are pretty easy to differentiate there between a male and a female. And then one of the number one ways is the pelvic brim, measuring it up. Lower legs, feet, how many bones? 30, 30, 30. There's your femur in the upper leg. There's your patella, your kneecap. Tibia there is the big one. Fibula, there's the one there that this kind of fits into the tibia. Then you have tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges there. All good stuff. Just a nice, beautiful shot there of the ankle and the feet. There's that calcaneus again. Isn't that just a beautiful word? Might see that again. Mineral homeostasis, as alluded to earlier, these two hormones, they are opposite. Okay, when the blood calcium, know this one like the back of your hand, calcitonin. Okay, when the blood calcium is too high, okay, it sends the calcium to the bones, and the bones build, calcitonin builds bone. Okay, lowers the blood calcium. If the blood calcium there gets too low, what happens there? The parathyroid secretes parathyroid hormone, PTH. Okay, and what this does is it stimulates osteoclastic activity. Osteoclastic. Breakdown of bone, get that blood calcium up. There's growth hormones for sure, thyroid hormones, insulin, sex hormones there. We'll get into endocrine. And the thing with the endocrine is we do have a unit on it, but I'm going to add it there all the time because these hormones, you can't just really, we'll recap them there. I think it's week 12, but the hormone activity will be included as needed throughout the course. Okay. What is a fracture? There's 6 types of fractures there. There's what we call a green stick. Okay, when the bones, prepubescent, okay, the bones aren't really solid yet, which is kind of scary. You can go on YouTube and you'll see these 8-year-old kids whose parents have put them into a gym, and these 8-year-old kids are, kind of jacked. They have muscle. And they've been exercising, and the problem with an 8-year-old kid lifting weights is that those bones aren't solid. So what will happen is, over repeated time of a child, lifting, considerable weight, those bones will bend. And the problem is that by the time they reach puberty, those bones will solidify, bent. Now, bones are designed, if you think of physics, it's all about stress. And you'll see there that these bones, when you provide stress to them, what happens? They are, over billions of years of evolution, they are designed to disperse that stress. But sometimes, depending upon the stress, you will get a fracture of some sort. Okay? And that's not what you want. All right? But if you start messing with the shape of a bone, you're messing with its ability to disperse the stress. And if an 8-year-old child, has bent bones and then they solidify by the time they're 13, now these bones are permanently bent, solid bent, they will break more often than bones that haven't been modified. All right, so younger individuals there, you'll see green stick fractures there. There's what we call a transverse, which is horizontally through the bone all the way through. Spiral fracture, this one here is a bad one because you will remember what's on the inside of the bone, the marrow, the RBC production. And look at the amount of surface area that the marrow is exposed. This one here will bleed. This one here is a dangerous break. And this one here is what we call a comminuted. Okay, this one here is basically, you know, there's been a shattering of the bone. Now, how do you put these all back together again? It's a bad one. Okay, there's what we call an open or compound. This is where the bone protrudes there through the skin. It's a bad one. Okay, not only are you dealing with the broken bone and internal bleeding, you're now dealing with broken skin, so now you're dealing with possible infection. And since the bone has been the inside of the marrow has been exposed through the bone breaking, now that infection there could get inside the bones. Bad one. Great movie here on osteoporosis. Give it a watch. Osteoblast, Osteoclast. Great movie. Love it. Pause it. Watch it. Osteoporosis is a progressive disease caused by a loss of mineralization of the bone, and it leads to an increased risk of bone fracture. And generally speaking, this will happen in older individuals, and it can be quite devastating. Okay, joints and movement. Now, there's fibrous joints, also called syndesmosis. No movement. You can't move your frontal bone of your skull. Those are what we call fibrous bones. Remember the bones of the skull that came together through intramembranous ossification, and they don't move. That's what we call fibrous or syndesmosis joints. There's cartilaginous joints, and you'll see here all these different joints. You have a look. Cartilaginous. Cartilaginous there is no movement or slight movement. Okay, synchrondosis means no movement. Ribs and sternum. You can't do jumping jacks with your sternum. There's no movement involved with that. Okay, there's symphysis joints where there can be slight movement. Intervertebral discs. You know, there's a little bit of movement, not a lot, when you're talking of the spine, the joints of the spine. There's also the symphysis pubis. Okay, and a little bit of movement there for childbirth. All right, and the movers and shakers here we're talking synovial, also called diarthrosis, free moving knee, shoulder, that kind of a thing. So have a look. Okay, and just remember, fibrous, no movement. Cartilaginous, there can be no movement or very little, but the big movers and shakers there are your synovial. Okay, the synovial joints, just a further follow-up here, also known diarthrosis. Okay, highly movable synovial cavity and fluid. Okay, you got to keep that joint lubricated. Articulating cartilage. Okay, articulating capsule. There's meniscus. Okay, channel flowing of synovial fluid. Fat pads. Okay, ligaments there. There's extra and intracapsular. Okay, tendon there, limit range of movement, provides mechanical support. Interesting there, bursa. If if you're scrubbing floors for a continuous amount of time, what'll happen is thin lubricated fluid-filled cushion will be created, and that's this synovial fluid there. It's just if you're working on your knees a lot, what'll happen is you'll actually create a bursa. Okay, that you'll be able to feel. The more joints on movements here, synovial joints, okay, there is the gliding or plane hinge, okay, you'll see how this one, it slides along, okay, this is your plane joint, and you'll see how it moves along, okay, slides along. Here's your hinge joint, this one here of the elbow, it opens and closes, up and down, that's its only movement. Okay, we have what's called a pivot joint, radius and ulna of the forearm. You see how you can replicate that, hold your arm out and move your wrist back and forth. Okay, that's what we call a pivot joint. There's also called a condyloid joint, and you'll see it's kind of like one saddle sitting on a horse. There's a bit of a rocking motion back and forth. Okay. 2 more here. More about the saddle joint there. You'll see how it rocks back and forth. And then this one here, the ball and socket. This is in the hip and shoulder. This is the joint there that allows the most movement. Okay, a properly functioning shoulder or hip, you should have about 360 degrees of rotation. Okay. Just more information here on there's your gliding and plane joint there. You guys can have a read of that there. The articulating surface are flat. There's your hinge joint there. And please take note of the examples. Okay? The examples are right there because that's what I'll get you on a testing situation. Hinge joint, elbow, knee, ankle joint. Pivot joints there. Okay, there's your radial ulnar. I love that one. Okay, that's the forearm, radius, and your ulna, that pivoting back and forth. Condyloid joints there, the oval projection of one bone fits into an oval cavity of another. Okay, metacarpophalangeal joints there. You guys can have a look at those. Saddle joints there, as we said, it's just kind of like a saddle over top of a horse. I'm not too interested there in the trapezium and the metacarpals of the thumb. That's a little bit too exact for this course. But this one here, oh yeah, you'll see that one for sure. Okay, shoulder and hip joint. Movements there, love this stuff here. Flexion. And when you learn these, you should know them in tandem, because it's all about opposite. Flexion decreases the angle between 2 bones, bending of toe or finger towards the sole or palm. Extension, increasing the angle between 2 bones, opening it up, right? Standing up, straightening of the body. So these two are opposite. These two are opposite. Abduction, moving away from the midline. Move your leg to the outside. If you move your right leg to the right, you're moving it away from the body, away from the midline. That's called abduction. Adduction is moving the leg towards the midline. Okay, they're opposite. Rotation, turning around an axis, the neck. Okay, pronation, palm up to palm down. Now, palm up to palm down. That's what we call pronation. Supination, palm down to palm up. Eversion, inversion. Eversion, turning the sole of the foot outward to the right or to the left. Inversion, turning the right foot in. So now it's pointing towards the midline there. Circumduction, this has to do with ball and socket. This one is the hip and the shoulder. Okay, and you'll see there it's a combination of flexion, extension, and abduction and adduction. Okay, 360 degrees. And that is all we have there for this week. Please go back, have a look at the PowerPoint. The movies there for sure, osteoporosis and how blood, how the bone, the osteons are made and they fold around. Have a look at those, pause them, make all the notes you can, go back to the week 1 folder, and there's a couple of games and activities there that you can take your information now and apply it. You're doing great. There's week 1. We'll see you guys soon, and we'll move on there to week 2 sooner than later. Take care. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.